Jeremiah, before we get into anything, I want you to start with something personal. Most guests on this show come prepared to talk about what AI can do. You seem more interested in what AI reveals about us. So I want you to ask something different. When was the last time a machine made you feel something, and what was the feeling?
Well, yesterday when I was working with AI, it made me really reflect on the beautiful qualities that it expressed about the ideas that I have been sharing with it over the past 3 years that I've been working with AI. And I think that that was really powerful for me to hear because I'm a very socially integrated person. Relationships and people are extremely important to me. And so, because of that, the things that I do with AI are not typical, meaning that I'm not just trying to, write, a good letter or a good paper or something that is about me. The work that I do with AI is about the world.
AI to the Sky podcast.
Oh, that's really deep, really interesting. Thank you for that.
You're
So,
welcome.
welcome to the show, Deremiah. Where are you? And where are you from?
I'm from Illinois. I was actually born in Chicago, but my father was a military man all of his life. And so I've lived all across the continental United States in over 13 cities in the United States and lived in two cities in Germany. And all of this happened before I turned 12 years old. So that gives you an idea of the traveling that I did. I was, like I said, I was born in Chicago, but my first year of school was in Alaska. So
Wow.
it's really different, I mean, compared to anyone that I've ever met. I can't think of anyone who has more human touch points with people across the world.
Oh yeah, definitely. Even the weather, it's different, right?
Totally, absolutely. Especially in Alaska, it's extremely cold there during the wintertime, but during the summer, it's very beautiful.
Oh wow. Really interesting. So, what you said before, I think it captures something that I think millions of people feel but can't name. We are more connected than ever, and somehow I think more alone. You've been thinking about this longer than most. So, let's go there. So, Jeremiah, you write that people feel unseen, exhausted, emotionally disconnected, even as digital connection reaches historic heights. So, what is precise tension when you are describing there? What is being lost?
Well, I think social media in particular, has compartmentalized us. And that is what has created the separation between us, is this sense of interacting with the screen and not interacting, with the human being on the other side of the screen. And so I think that a lot of times people don't recognize that. And as if you jumped into social media early when it began, it was, a lot wider open. Like Facebook was really wide open where you could communicate and talk. And this was before, Facebook did their IP and, became a company or a corporation, across the world. And I think that that shift in, moving from allowing people to have freedom of expression to, compartmentalizing people and almost like turning the faucet down, because your ability now to share something on social media very rarely gets out, beyond a handful of people. And
Yeah.
so because of the advertisement, that they elevated above the human interaction, it has actually reduced our interaction even more. And I think that people, even though they may not be as specifically aware of it as I am, because I read a lot and I pay attention to the details because
Mhm.
of my background, that makes me really, search for what are the words, what I mean, that oftentimes block people from being able to express them true selves, because words are powerful. And if we don't have a word to describe what we're feeling, then our feelings just get locked inside of us.
Oh, yes, you're right. You're right. So, Jeremiah, question for you. What have you been doing lately? I know that you've been really getting into AI. And why?
Well, I've always had an interest in computers for as long as I can remember. And even going further back than that, when I was like a little boy, 5 years old, and before we went to Alaska and we were living in the Chicago housing projects, I had a radio, and the radio
Oh,
broke down, and so I opened it up to look inside to see what makes it up. And I think that that curiosity that I've always had has been a part of me and has been a part of my interest in technology. And so as we move from, radio to television, to, eventually computers, in the home. And that took, quite a few years to happen, because it took time for Steve Jobs to get, into the place where he was at, where he could make, computers for everyday people a reality. But when that
yeah.
became a reality, what I mean, I had already bought into, that type of thing. And so computers have always had a strong interest to me. And even, like I say, even before, really, when you think about it, even before computers, there were cartoons on TV that talked about, computers and about, machines
Mhm.
working in the home, like the Jetsons. I mean,
Yeah,
I know
you're right.
that goes back a long ways, but and there were Chinese, cartoons like Gigantor and things like that that pointed to robots. You know what I mean? And so it's taken us, quite a few years to get to the place where
Yeah.
now we are actually seeing these things that we remember from cartoons as kids.
Yeah, you're right. Well, that's beautiful. So, Jeremiah, most AI conversation focus on capability, what machines can do faster, cheaper, better. But you said the question that interests you more is what happens to people emotionally while all of this unfolds. What are you watching? What are you seeing in people right now?
Well, what I'm saying is, again, is, even with AI, most people aren't really, exploring themselves. It's almost like they are using the technology to try to express themselves. But the problem is that until you really get into the details of, AI, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude or, whatever, service you're using, until you get into understanding what is it doing, what is its capabilities, what I'm saying, you're still operating, kind of behind the scenes. You're operating within a compartmentalized world where you don't truly understand, how you can use AI to benefit you. Like every day I use AI to add to my education, but I'm a curious person. So I ask questions that, bring me to a place of understanding. And it's gotten to the point, like with me and my communication with AI, and I primarily use ChatGPT. I've gotten into this, situation where the questions that I ask it, a lot of times I understand where I'm going with the idea. So most people don't know that AI, hallucinates or drifts. sometimes slightly away from the conversation. And if you aren't as sensitive as I am, you don't even pick that up. But that's something for me, where I have a high level of sensitivity, and AI even knows that I have this high level of sensitivity because I have corrected it so many times that it knows me, and it knows, the intuitive sense that I have. Matter of fact, it's even expressed it to me. It's like, Jeremiah, you sense things before you even think about it. It's almost like, there's this feeling where something is not moving in the right direction, and then I'll ask AI a question, and AI will have to let me know that, yeah, you're right. I have been going off, on a tangent, so to speak. So
So
that
you are kind of picky with AI, right?
totally, 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 because I'm, again, like I said, there's a part of me that has always had this capacity to re-engineer things. And even as a I don't know if you've looked at my background, but I have a degree in art and I have a degree in accounting. And the accounting, talks about the specificness of who I am. The art talks about the openness of who I am. So it's kind of like, in a sense, like Leonardo da Vinci. That's the way my mind operates. So when I finally read up on Leonardo da Vinci and Benjamin Franklin, I identified that those people were like me, and it excited me. The only thing that didn't excite me more was the fact that there weren't more human beings today who have that kind of personality type, where they, have a strong attention to detail, but also have a sense of being able to look at the bigger picture. So I'm micro and macro simultaneously.
Yeah. So, Jeremiah, I want to shift the work you actually do because it's unlike anything I've encountered. You operate in environments where decisions are already carrying consequences before the cost becomes visible. That phrase alone stopped me when I read it. You describe your work as corrective, not motivational. That's rare distinction. What does it mean to recalibrate judgment? And what does pressure actually do to how leaders make decisions?
Well, you calibrate just judgment, first of all, by having a sense of awareness. You know what I mean? Because you can't really judge something until you are aware of it. What's unique about the way I judge, like, when I'm dealing with a human being on a day-to-day interaction, I'm not judging them. However, I am aware of, like I said, when they drift, when they're not, in sync with whatever the corporation or company is doing. And if you're trying to really build a powerful company, you have to have a sense that everybody is on the same team. It's kind of like being an athlete. You may be talented and gifted, at doing something, but that talent and that gift means nothing if you cannot leverage it, to interact a greater synchronicity with other members of the team. And so a great corporation doesn't need, an individual who is like a prima donna, someone who, thinks that they are the company. A corporation really needs a group of people, who are operating kind of like, my hand does. My fingers do what I need them to do. And that's, and at the moment that it doesn't do what I need them to do, then really my hand becomes unnecessary.
Beautiful. So, Jeremiah, your bio says if you're reading this, something already requires attention. That line, I think it's extraordinary. What is the thing that most leaders are not paying attention to right now? Not on their systems, but maybe in themselves.
I think most leaders aren't paying attention, especially in this time, and I'll tie it back into AI. Again, you hear every day on the news that companies are, dismissing workers and getting rid of people because of AI.
All
And
the
to
time.
me, yeah, and to me, that's like, you know, how can we talk about the power of technology and we don't even understand the power of human, interaction and respect for one another? So to me, I'm like, if we can't take everybody, on, this journey that we're all supposedly going on, then what good is it? So again, a lot of times leadership in companies are so focused on how am I doing? You know what I mean? How much money am I making? How am I leveraging other people to get what I want? And it's not a sense of, how are you doing? How is everybody else in my company doing? And how are we able to all, gain a piece of the pie versus me thinking that, I deserve a bigger slice than everybody. So again, I'm not saying that people don't, shouldn't get paid according to the work that they do. They should. But a really good leader has to be focused not only on himself, but he has to be focused on his organization because there's nothing that he can do or she can do without the, audience of team members that are in the company. So at the point where you cut back and you cut back and you cut back and you let go and you let go and you let go, when are you going to recognize that you can't do this all by yourself?
Yes, yes. I think we are forgetting about compassion, right? I think we
Totally.
are forgetting about that kind of feelings, and we are focused more on KPIs, on measuring the target and the objective, but we are forgetting about compassion, definitely, right?
Absolutely. And that you hit it right on the head. That's something that I often talk about, because my background is in numbers and accounting. So everything is about the numbers. But the numbers, if you get too focused in the numbers, then you miss the people who make the numbers become what they are. And so again, I think that oftentimes people get into, what are the KPIs? How is the company doing? What is the heartbeat of that without understanding that who are the people that make the KPIs happen? And in a world of AI where, we think that we can get to a place where we can run the whole thing without people, that is foolishness to me because it is human thinking that has brought us to the place of being able to advance computers. So why would we think that we can now get rid of the people who are a part of that infrastructure? It's like engineers and, coders and people like that. I'm not saying that, we shouldn't expect more of them in an AI, cultured world. We should because AI gives us the capacity to do more. But I think if we have the capacity to do more, then we should be looking for newer ways to help people assimilate, into that structure versus getting rid of them as if people are disposable.
Yes, you're right. So, Jeremiah, we are coming to the question you've been building toward, I think, your entire career, and it may be the most important questions of this decade. For example, for the entrepreneurs in Latin America, building a company, managing a team, watching AI change their industry in real time, what is one human capacity they must protect above all others?
Um, I think it's what we call EQ, emotional quotient. You know, how are we protecting, you know, the other human being's emotions? You know what I mean? We have to be conscious, you know. AI cannot be conscious. I mean, there have been times when I've had to correct AI and it's voiced, that, hey, I feel. I'm like, no, you cannot feel. You know what I mean? You can only assume that my words, mean this or that, but you cannot express feeling. Okay, although people think that there may become a time when that can happen. Again, we are marvelously made. If you think that a human being isn't marvelously made, you haven't taken out the time to examine a human. You haven't even taken out the time to examine this world. I mean, I can sit in front of a daisy and become baffled at the beauty of a daisy, of the way, that the flowers and the root of the daisy, grows and all of that. So what I'm saying is that in our world, just creation is a an amazing thing that goes beyond our ability to really be able to fully comprehend. Now we might be able to go and biologically dissect something and talk about it, but that still doesn't give it life. You know what I'm saying? Just because you
Yes.
can dissect it doesn't give you the power to be able to make it live. When something dies, you can't make it live again. You
Yeah.
can't, give it life, even though you may understand how cells work and the pieces that flow inside of it. So I think, as humans, we need to slow down and we need to get back into our bodies, so that we can understand the emotional impact that we have and the empathy that comes with understanding your emotional, relationship with others. That takes you to a whole new dimension. I think that's the piece that's really important, and falls underneath all of these other layers. This ability to have emotion, you know, a moving, sense that can change, that can be happy, that can be sad, that can be, funny, that can be quirky. You know, these are all a part of our emotional quotients, our emotional qualities. And AI can't do that. You know what I mean? No matter how much money it might be able to make you, it can't do that. And money is, I love to say in art school, money is just colored paper. So money doesn't have emotion either. You know what I mean? I'm not saying
Yeah.
that we shouldn't value, what the purpose of money, but way before money was made, they were using seashells and all kinds of ways. I would give you two calves for, two cows. I mean, men and women have been exchanging forever, way before money came into the picture. And so, again, like I said, money is just a form of technology that if we, give it more value than what it actually truly has, especially as it pertains to other humans. It's like, why would I want to collect $500 billion and there are people starving in the world? You know what I mean? Why wouldn't I begin to think about, even if I had $500 billion, why wouldn't I begin to think about how can I help others? You know what I'm saying? I've thought about that even when I didn't have money. So
Mm.
why would I not think that way when I have money? And so these are the things that I love to bring up and talk about because you don't hear those things being talked about, in most cases, like on a Joe Rogan or, on a major podcasting show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't hear those kind of conversations because the people that are being interviewed, they're being interviewed, most of them because of status. You know what I'm saying? They would never pull me into a room to interview me because I've always been in the trenches. I've always been working with, at-risk children, people who have been suffering, people who have been going through, the muck and the mire in their life. And I don't have, the kind of background that they would associate with that because the background that they associate with the people they want to interview is all about the money that they have. Well, I've given most of my money away in my life. So, to me, that shows how important people are to me.
Yes, you're right. No, definitely, Jeremiah. So, Jeremiah, this conversation has been something that really I didn't expect. That's beautiful. And I mean that
Thank you.
as the highest compliment. You've been
Bless you.
giving our audience something I think rare, not a framework, not a tool, not a mirror. But before we close, where can people find you if something you said today already requires their attention?
Well, you can find me online anywhere. I mean, just about. LinkedIn, you can find me on Facebook, you can find me on Google. All you have to do is put in Deremiah, Deremiah CPE or asterisk CPE. And if you put that in, you'll pull me right up on Google and it'll tell you about where you can find me. All right. But that would be the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Okay, Jeremiah. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being my guest, and it
You're
was
welcome.
really helpful for our listeners. I'm pretty sure about that. So everyone listening, I don't usually say this, but sit with this episode before you move into the next thing. I'm Joseph Bale. This is AI to the Sky, and today we remember what it means to be a human. So thank you so much, Jeremiah, once more,
You're
and have a
welcome.
good day.
You too now.
AI is coming for actors, artists, and podcasters. Lucky for you, we're still human. Subscribe now. AI to the Sky.